this if you're like me and your allergies are out of control. That's probably the only downside. Other than that, the weather is perfect out there. So hopefully everything is going well for everyone. Glad to have you along today. We've got CE Credit, of course, today. We're going to be getting to that in just a few minutes. But first of all, we always like to kick off with saying hello to the newest, the newest members. As far as I know, none of them, they're all fully clothed. So of our more family here, our newest agents, we've got 11 of them in the last week. We love to see this list be this long each week. So definitely keep it coming. Reach out to people you know at other companies. We'd love to have them join us over here. And of course, there's a benefit for you too. You got your 2,000 more stock options. Plus, with our cash incentive right now, $100 for each agent that joins. And on the fifth agent, we give you $750. So $1,150 you can make on that, plus 2,000 stock options for each person that joins. So definitely have them reach out. We'd love to have them join us here at More. Today's CE is going to be brought to you by Next Title and Cindy Manning. She's on the call this morning. Cindy, do you have anything exciting for us here?
Oh, exciting. I don't think I do. No, we are approaching tax holdback season. So starting to see a lot of those come in on lender docs. So that increases your buyer's closing costs by quite a bit. So
just real quickly, for those who aren't familiar with what that is this time of year, what does that mean? What happens there?
Yeah, so tax, we started our new tax year in July 1st, but taxes are not due and payable until late October, early November. So what lenders are having us do is collect 115% of what the taxes were last year and holding those so that we can pay them when they become due late next month. So that can increase buyer closing costs by quite a bit. So just a heads up.
So what happens then if they don't need the whole 115% when the taxes come out, they're certified and they're paid? Does that just stay in escrow, or do they get a refund check?
No, they get a refund check. Yes.
So it's just some good information to let your clients know when they get the sticker shock of seeing the holdback there. It is going toward their taxes, so it's not like it's just something that is, well, depending on how you feel about taxes, not something that's completely wasted. At least it's going to pay off something that they need to pay off. So it's not just a fee to the lender or anything like that. So thank you, Cindy. Appreciate that.
Yep, you betcha.
Today's Mortgage Moment is provided by Directors Mortgage. We got the Irwin team on with us today, and Austin Irwin here. And Austin, I'll get your slides pulled up here, and hopefully you can, as you always do, you can share some positive news out there. I know everybody focuses on the rates and starts getting a little down, but there are some positive things in the market and still some opportunities.
No, definitely. And thank you to everybody over at More Realty for using Directors as a resource, whether it's the Hannah team or the Irwin team. We greatly appreciate you. We're going to talk about the market real quick, what's going on, because the Fed is starting to hint that they might be looking at a pause. But before we look at that, let's talk about how there continues not to be enough inventory, because right now, nationwide, there's about 2,070,000 household formations looking for a home. And if we look at completions, this takes into account multi-family units. There's 1.41 million completions with multifamily and single family. But when you look at single family completions, that's down 7% at 0.96 million. So there's going to be continued housing shortage, and clients that are on the fence waiting for a lower interest rate environment, they are going to have a rude awakening when rates come down and new buyers come into the market, because Black Knight says for every 1% interest rates drop, 5 million new home buyers come into the market. So that inventory is going to get gobbled up very quickly. So helping clients realize buying now, taking that higher rate, and then refinancing in the future is going to be huge. Jim, if you go to the next slide for me. Now let's talk about home prices. I found this really interesting. So we just got the month of June for home appreciation. And Case Shiller is saying that home appreciation pace for 2023 is at 5%. FHFA is 6%, CoreLogic 10%, Black Knight 6%. And Zillow 10% for home appreciation. That's what they're tracking. And it's amazing to see FHFA, CoreLogic, Black Knight, and Zillow all have said we have hit all-time high readings in real estate values. for June. The only one that's lagging is Case-Shiller. My guess is we'll see that for July. If we go to the next slide, Jim. Now, let's talk about the Fed and the fantasy. We got Jerome Powell here. And Powell, in his comments on Monday, said that they potentially might be pausing the federal funds rate, but they still want to hit their target of 2% inflation, which is going to be very difficult to do. And so we are very wary of Jerome Powell right now. He doesn't want to go down in history as potentially one of the worst Fed chairs. It depends on who you ask again, but it seems like we've really gotten beat up. And if you go to the next slide, Jim.
It looks like a very happy guy there.
He looks like a very happy guy right now. I would be too when I dealt with 9% inflation. You got John Williams, though, who I do think who's going to be a really strong power in the Fed. He's been a Fed voting member since 2023, but he's been a Fed member since 2011. And he has his head on straight. He has a PhD in economics. He went to University of California. And then he also has real life experience with senior economists at the White House. And he's also been a lecturer. So I think he's going to be really pushing for the Fed to pause the federal funds rate from rising. And then we should start to see the Fed lower the federal funds rate in 2024. So this is really encouraging. As that Fed funds rate comes down, so will rates. Next slide real quick, Jim. Now, one thing that's really astonishing, this has only happened 4 times in the past 40 years, where the federal funds rate is actually higher than the 10-year treasury. And what happens when this phenomenon comes into play? Well, we get lower mortgage rates. If you look at 2002, we went through a recession, the federal funds rate was higher. And then what happened? We saw mortgage rates lower. Same thing in 2008, 2000 and 2020. And we're seeing that same indicator in 2022. Now, that federal funds rate in the pink line, or in the 10-year treasury in that pink line, is way higher. I'm sorry, the federal funds rate is way higher than the 10-year treasury. So this could be a really good indicator for even lower mortgage rates than what we're expecting of 5%. Last slide, Jim. Last thing I want to cover, guys, is cross-collateral loans, because clients are still motivated to sell and buy. And we had a great client by the name of Peggy and Brian that Mark and I helped do a cross-collateral loan to go non-contingent. And so basically we put this deal together. They had a departing residence value of $420,000. They didn't have a mortgage on the property. We had to consider their debt, though, on a cross-collateral loan. That was $1,250. And we also have to calculate what their income is. Household income was $6,127.33. They wanted to upsize and buy a $480,000 home, but the seller was not taking contingent offers. So what we did instead is we looked at doing a cross-collateral loan. So we took $420,000, that's the value of the departing, times it by 75%. That gives us $315,000 we can use in a bridge loan on the departing residence. The subject property collateral loan that we're going to tag on the new property is $165,000. So our total loan to value is 100%. Now, what's really nice about this is, well, we can close in 11 days. There's no appraisal required. And we're able, after we close on the subject property, Peggy and Brian are able to close on their departing residence. They're going to pay off the bridge loan that they put on the property. And now they just have that collateral loan of $165,000, which we're going to refinance to a conventional mortgage. Again, 11-day close, no appraisal. And what's really nice about this is we're able to get our realtor partners $33,000 in commission from the buy and the sell. Whereas the clients that they couldn't make non-contingent, they're going to sit tight for another 5 years and really weigh out the market. So a great way to help your clients achieve their goals. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Austin. Yeah, I mean, the short story is, when it comes to the inventory, we still have a lack of inventory out there, and that's keeping prices high. And that's pretty much around the country here. I know that they will go up and they will go down a little bit here and there, but overall, we've got definitely a shortage of homes out there. And the other takeaway here is that you don't have to remember all the details of that loan program, but if you've got a client that is in a sticky situation or can't get financed, it never hurts to get a second opinion. Reach out to the Irwin team out there at Directors Mortgage, and maybe they can help with some of these creative loans. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Up next, Laura Holm. She is going to be talking to you about back office and more gives. Laura, are you ready? I'll go to the next slide for you there. There's your back office screen. So
thank you, Jim. Yeah, I just wanted to take a quick second and remind everybody that we did have a more back office platform overview. Was that this week? Last week last week, and you can find the recording on More Back Office on the homepage. There's a big YouTube button. Click on that button. You can watch the replay of that. So if you are still struggling with navigating the system, or if you have questions, or if you just want to refresh or any of that, I would highly recommend watching that replay. It's very helpful and informational. If you have any questions about the new system, make sure and email agentsupport@morerealty.com. And I think that's all I have for back office. And then I wanted to quickly remind everybody that we have our upcoming bingo event. I do have an exciting update regarding this event. Due to a very generous donation, we are now able to offer bingo at no cost to all of our agents. So if you would like to come play with us, please, please, please RSVP. We can put the link in the chat. It's going to be a lot of fun. We do have limited seating, so if you would like to play bingo, please RSVP sooner than later. If you do not get to sign up for bingo but still want to participate, please still come and enjoy everybody's good company. There's going to be snacks. We're going to have a pile of puppies there sharing their cause, so it's going to be a really great event. Again, that is on October 3rd from 11 to 1. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I think that's all I have today, Jim.
Thank you, Laura. Look, you got snacks, you got bingo, and you got a pile of puppies. I mean, what more can you ask for? So definitely get yourself registered for that. Come join us. And the bingo is free, as are the puppies, not to take home, but to see. And we're going to have a good time. It's for a great cause. So please join us for that. And just a couple words on the back office. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to go in and get yourself registered and play around with it. I realize there's a learning curve here. And we've seen some comments on Basecamp. You know, a few of them, to be very honest, not quite as positive as they could be. If you are that agent, please don't be that agent. If you have if you have some questions or some concerns or some constructive insight, we'd love to hear about it. We're always happy to listen. But you know, posting complaints and things on a public forum is not what the forum is for. So there's definitely going to be a learning curve here, but this system overall is going to be much more robust, much easier, much more convenient to use than Basecamp, Call More Realty, et cetera, because it's all going to be in one place. And it's easier to compartmentalize the different offices. And for the people who were concerned about maybe getting too many announcements before, because everything was going out company-wide, we've got a way to keep those within the different office areas. So definitely reach out. If you do have some questions or anything, you can reach out to myself, or you can reach out to agentsupport@morerealty.com. We'd love to kind of help you get familiar with it. I think that you're going to like this overall. Just give it a chance. And, you know, there's, like I said, there's always a learning curve, but we're going to get through it. And already we've gotten, for the most part, very positive support from the people who have dove into it and played around with it and kind of got familiar with it.
Oh,
so
no, I opened the box.
we appreciate people doing that.
Yes. Wrapping this.
Here's somebody. Oh, there we go. Okay, just heard somebody talking there. Wasn't sure who it was. Okay, before we get to our CE here, we've got Patricia Lynn with Exceed CE, and I don't know why there's an extra E in there. My apologies, Patricia, but she is with a company that provides CE credit, and she's going to be doing a CE class for us coming up this Thursday. And Patricia, I wanted you just to introduce yourself, and so that people know who you are, and tell a little bit about your company here, and we'll also pull up the screenshot of your website as well.
Great, thank you, Jim. What a great meeting this is! Wow. My name is Patricia Lynn, as Jim says. I'm the owner of Exceed CE, and we are an online self-paced company to offer continuing education credits for you. What makes us a little different is that my team and I are all continuing real estate practitioners. We're in the field. We're dealing with the same issues that you deal with in the field. And we want to make our content, and we do make our content, something that we hope that you can not just get your CE credits on, but you can actually use. So this Thursday, we're really excited about offering a course on commercial real estate and residential real estate negotiations, interest-based negotiations. The course will be available. It's been approved for 1 unit of credit. And what we hope that it will do will be dispel some of the negotiation myths that you might have and give you a nice 3-step process that you can apply to any situation, not just real estate negotiations, but basically getting along in the world. So it's a course I'm really excited about. And that's Thursday. I also put into the chat window a discount code that we're excited about offering to more agents. It's just more 10, and that gives you 10% off of your continuing education if you need license renewal soon. So I think that's it, Jim. Anything else?
I think that's good. Thank you, Patricia. Appreciate you being on here. And if you guys need another hour after today, you can get it on Thursday. Patricia is, it's a good number to keep in your system. So as your license sneaks upon you for renewal and you realize you're a little short on your CE, she and her company can help you out there. So appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jim, and hope to see you all Thursday.
Appreciate it. All right, for today's CE topic, we're going to move on to name that home style. Lynette Hardy from Lynette Hardy Interior Design is on, and Lynette, I'll let you take it from here, and we shall be able to name that home style when we're done here, I assume. Well, hopefully we'll be able to name that home style, because if we can't get Lynette on here and I have to teach that, we're all in trouble here. So, hey, Cindy.
Is she?
I'm here. Sorry
Oh.
about that. I have to
Okay.
unmute.
There you go.
How do I
Yep.
do my screen sharing?
Okay.
Someone
I'm
gonna share
going
that
to
with me.
stop the share here, and then you should be
Okay.
able to do it. So
All right, sounds good.
there we go.
All right. This up.
This is going to be great because there's so many different styles in Portland, you know, so many years of history here from, you know, pretty much all the major styles. I mean, everything from Victorian homes to you know, my favorite's the mid-century stuff, you know, a lot of new building. There's all kinds of things, but I'll let you take it from here and show us what you got.
Okay, thank you. As you mentioned, I'm Lynette from Hardy Interior Design. I have a bachelor's degree in design. I love homes and home styles. And I'm also a chronic open house attender. So I like to see how much, and I often find that listings are mislabeled on what kind of house they are. I think this class is helpful so that you can label your homes or do your listings more accurately, but also so that you can help your clients figure out what they want. I had a situation recently where I had gotten a new client and they had said they really wanted to lean into the style of the house. And it turned out that what they really had wanted was an Elizabethan, and they ended up with a Spanish style because their realtor hadn't figured out what they wanted. And so that was a little frustrating for them when they just spent $1 million plus on a home. Anyway, so this class is all about that. I would like to start with that. Traditionally, homes are known as folk or style. That's how we categorize them. A folk house would also be known as a farmhouse. This is something that neighbors or families got together and built. A styled home would be something that was planned ahead, may or may not have had an architect, but it was a one-off, and so it was something special. And there really weren't styled homes in the U.S. until the late 1800s, or in the world until the late 1800s, being more common for the upper middle class. So today we categorize homes as tract, semi-custom, and custom. And a tract home is where a developer buys a tract of land and he builds several homes on that. He may have 2 or 3 different floor plans or reverse a couple of different floor plans, but the developer and the builder do that.
Are we supposed to be seeing your screen at the moment? I don't see anything yet.
Are you not seeing it?
No.
Well, that's a problem. Hold on. Let me try this again. You're not seeing my screen at all?
No, we don't see anything yet. We just see you.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, you should be able to share here. It says that you should be able to. So
there, I'll try this again.
when you pull it up, don't make the mistake I made and forget to actually click share when after you click on the screen to watch. So
Okay, let's see.
if you want to email it to me real quick, I can pull it up for you as well.
Okay.
So Lynette,
Yeah,
just send
I'm
it
not
to
sure
Jim.
why I'm not able to.
Yeah, just send it to Jim at morerealty.com and I'll pull it up. In the meantime, you can continue on and I'll get it pulled up for you and then we can just catch up.
Here, let's try this.
There we go.
All right,
Coming
let's
up.
start over.
Coming up.
Sorry about that.
That's good.
I'm an artist, you know. So now I gotta make this bigger, right? There we go. Okay, start again. So typically, let's see, get rid of this. Typically homes, okay, so folk, as you can see on the left, is more of a build it yourself, get your friends and neighbors together and build it. And styled would be something that is more planned out and architects involved, a one-off kind of house. I'm not sure how to get rid of this, but okay. Okay, so then today we categorize homes into these three categories: tract, semi-custom, and custom. And tract home you see on the top left. And you can see my screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Let me see if I can get rid of this. Let's see that. And then semi-custom is where you probably have the land or it's one piece of property. And then a builder has several different floor plans that he might put on that land in different versions. This is two versions of a Renaissance home you can see from the 90s and then again from just recently. But that's a semi-custom home. And then a custom home again is what we would have called historically a styled home, where you have an architect, it's one of a kind, and it's on its own land. So the beginnings of residential architect date back to the 1500s. And the first home that was really for non-royals was a home designed by architect Antonio Palladio in Italy called Villa Capra, but nicknamed Villa La Rotunda because of the round room in the middle. And he was a wealthy person and he styled his home after ancient temples in Greece and in Rome, the Pantheon in Rome and the Parthenon in Greece, also the Temple of Athena. As you can see some of the similarities there with the columns and the front pediment and that kind of thing. The first time we see this style in the United States is Thomas Jefferson. He traveled to Europe quite a bit. He saw Villa Capra and he designed his own home to look like that with the rotund, with the round room in the middle. And you can see the front pediment there and the columns. So the homes that we're going to talk about, we're going to focus primarily on North American home styles. And this is just a few of them that I think the most common ones. And these are the ones that we're going to talk about. Now, obviously, the first American homes, Native American homes, were Native American styles. The ones we're most familiar with here in the Northwest is the longhouse, the Iroquois common house for them. We also have the wickiup, the teepee, wigwam, and pueblo. But there's probably as many styles as there are different tribes. But these are just some of the most common ones. The only one that has really survived to modern day being still built is the pueblo. So this is the pueblo, and it's made out of adobe or a stucco construction. Adobe traditionally, but currently they might use a stucco construction. And then here on the right, you can see some of the characteristics of a pueblo home. You'll have pole ladders, so kind of rough wood made into ladders, beams sticking out, also called vigas. You can see that here on the upper right. You have low walls and gates, like here, presumably to keep animals in or animals out. And then you have built-in elements inside, like a fireplace or a niche or something like that. So now the rest of this class today is kind of quiz style, but since we're on Zoom, you can just quiz yourselves as we go along. But I'm going to show a home style and see if you know what it is. The next slide, I will show you what it is, and we'll talk about the characteristics that go along with that. Okay, so anyone know what this one is? You can answer yourselves. This is a Spanish style. It's typically stucco construction, which is different than Adobe. Adobe's more mud. Stucco usually has some sort of metal or some kind of caging to hold up the stucco. A tiled roof, often red. We're seeing more green and blue now. Arcaded porch. Up here on the right is the arcaded porch, and that's where you have several arches together, and that's called an arcade. You also have ornate tile work, as you can see on this example down below, where you might have hand-painted tiles inside and outside of the house. You'll have ironwork like on this balcony here, and you'll have courtyards or exterior halls. And that's because primarily these were built in hotter climates and gets really stuffy inside the house. So you want to be outside, but somewhere covered. So those are some of the characteristics of the Spanish style. A subset of Spanish style is the mission style. As the missionaries from South America came up to the US, they built missions, Catholic missionaries. They added bell towers, like the top here. And this is an imitation of that, a chimney. And they also did this kind of carved out area. So that added to the Spanish style as well. Now, arts and crafts movement was also popular at the same time. So arts and crafts or craftsman furniture also became popular and became known as mission furniture, even though they are two different styles. Okay, so now these are three home styles that are related. And you can see on the bottom left, the styles are Garrison, Cape Cod, and Salt Box. So each one of these correlates to one of these homes. See if you know which one. The top left is a Salt Box. You can see it's the house, and then it has something added onto the back. The top right is the Cape Cod, and the bottom is the Garrison. Now, these are all English colonial, and what they have in common are that they are symmetrical. So they'll have a central chimney, central door, windows. They also have narrow wood siding and small paned windows, as you can see on the bottom, Garrison, and here on the Cape Cod. They also commonly have this paneled door, which is here on the left. It's also known as a Christian door. A lot of these early settlers, English settlers, were Christian, and they came to escape religious persecution. And they designed this door, which is supposed to be a cross at the top, you can see there, and then an open Bible at the bottom. And that was to tell visitors that this was a Christian household and let them know what they were entering into. So all of these styles have these things in common, but I'll talk about the differences now. So a Cape Cod, and typically anything that's kind of a one-story, people call a Cape Cod, and that's fine too for your purposes as you're distinguishing houses. But typically it's one story, but it has a hidden half story, so like a little attic room, as you can see on the top right one in the yellow house. A true Cape Cod will not have any shutters, and it won't have any front porch. They were very simple to start with. As shutters became in fashion or front porches became in fashion, a lot of these were added to the Cape Cod. So it's really difficult to find a Cape Cod now that doesn't have shutters or a front porch of some kind. But that is the Cape Cod traditionally. This is the Garrison. I was going to mention something about the early colonials too, were only one room deep, as you can see. They weren't 2 rooms deep. As you went in, there's just one room. Our houses now are 2 rooms are deeper than that. The Garrison same is still 1 room deep, still hidden half story, but it has a second story on, and it has an overhang here. That was presumably to get a little more space. You'd find these a lot of times in town, so they could be close to the sidewalk and then get a little more space above. On the left, you can see a corbel. So these second stories are held up by corbels. Pineapple was also a common symbol in colonial times of hospitality. And so you can see the pineapple carved in the corbel, as well as the leg of this chair. So those are common things. So this is the Garrison. Again, central chimney, central door, symmetrical windows. And then the Salt Box kind of starts out a simple 2-story. And then as the family grows, they maybe add on to the back of it, called a lean-to. And then it kind of has that sloped style. I think it's called a Salt Box, and I'm not sure if that was complimentary or not. But here at the bottom, I have a picture of an 18th century salt box. So you can kind of see maybe why this name came about. On the right is a modern interpretation, and you can see it is 2 rooms deep. So it's not a classic, but it's also out of brick. A lot of things you'll find too when you're looking at homes is the materials they're made of is really common to what the area is. It's not so much anymore. Like in the Northwest, obviously we see a lot of wood houses because wood is plentiful here. In the Midwest, you'd see more stone and brick. And it used to be a sign if you lived in the Northwest and you have a brick home, that's a sign of wealth because you were able to import that brick in. But typically homes are made of the materials in their region. Okay, these are 2 other home styles. The next 2, French and Dutch. See if you know which is which.
Dutch is the first one.
Yep, on the left. We have a lot of those here in Portland, so hopefully you're familiar with that. Let's talk a little bit more about the Dutch colonial. And Dutch is actually Deutsch. Germans call themselves Deutsch. And as they came over to the US, it was Americanized to Dutch, which is unfortunate because Dutch is also people from Holland. But the Dutch colonials were really German colonists mostly. They were farmers and master craftsmen. The gambrel roof became common for barns as well. They did it for their homes and their and their barns since they were farmers. So they commonly had it for both. But we think of this kind of as a barn style, but the gambrel roof was also a home style. So that's where it kind of like has a broken top. It's not just a straight pitch, but it has a broken, and that was a way to get a little more headroom in the homes as well. They could be made of brick or stone. Here in Portland, we have more wood-sided ones for that same reason. The original Dutch or German colonists, they were in the Midwest, and so they were more commonly in brick or stone. The Dutch door comes from the style where it opens at the top and the bottom, again, to keep animals or kids in or out. Here, the homes were a little bit bigger than the English colonial, so they needed chimneys on either end to keep the house warm. So instead of having a central chimney, it now moved to the outside. And then it was more of a wishbone or a shape. This one isn't really a great example of the wishbone shape, but it is a little tapered at the bottom. And then they didn't use nails. They used peg construction in the original ones. They were just master craftsmen at building the peg and dowel system. Okay, so this is the French colonial. So I did this in order of kind of how the colonists came to the US. And so that's why we're going in this order and the most common ones. So the French were kind of the next to arrive on the scene. They are known for the hipped roof. So as we see, let me look back here for a second. Here, this is a typical just straight gable roof, end gable. But the French, they bring the corners in. So this is what we call a hipped roof. And the French are known for that, although has been used by other people too. They're also known for breaking the eaves. So you see where the roof eave here is and the window comes in the middle of it. That's a breaking the eave line, windows in the middle. They're known for the cornerstones. Doesn't show in this one, but it does on this one, where you have these pieces on the corner, also known as coins. Also lacy ironwork. Maybe in another picture, we'll see that. And the French door, which is kind of a combination of a window and a door. And there's different kinds. There's kind of the French provincial, which means country house, or there's the French townhouse, which is here like the bottom. And this is one here in Portland, a neighborhood. I can't think of the name of it at the moment, but they do a pretty good job at kind of imitating the broken eaves here. They have the coins and some of the details there. Okay, name this home style. You probably all know this one.
Tudor.
Tudor, yes. Very common style. This is a home that keeps having revivals, this style home. It's been popular for a long time, so it comes and goes in fashion. The original Tudor was named after the Tudor family in England. As the monasteries in England were dissolved, land became available, the rise of the middle class, people began building homes. And this is the style then. The characteristics are 2 to 3 stories, so bigger, grander, half timber construction, which is this where you can see the timber and the in-between, that's called half timber. Typically brick or stone on the first level, and typically a second story overhang, kind of like the garrison. You'll have higher pitches, sharper gables, and many chimneys. So these were wealthy families that were first building these and they were imitating the royals. And so they were big, elaborate homes mostly. We have a lot of these too, like in the Eastmoreland neighborhood, Capitol Heights, some of those areas. Okay, the next style on the scene is this one.
English.
It's English, yes. And probably in your MLS listing, you'd call it an English cottage. Technically, it's an Elizabethan, and even more technically, it's a Tudor as well, because Elizabeth was part of the Tudor family. But Elizabethan is slightly different in that it still is 2 or 3 stories, still stone or brick. They have recessed doorways, but they have kind of this storybook kind of look to them. And I don't know this, but I think this is trying to imitate a thatched roof, was the idea coming across from an English cottage. Diamond pane windows, you'll see them in Tudor or Elizabethan. They're typically attributed to the Elizabethan style. But again, sharp gables and many chimneys. Something that is really typical of Elizabethan is this recessed doorway. Well, you'll have some kind of arch and then the door back behind. And it can come in a lot of different shapes. These are a few homes around Portland. They can be round or square like this one. You can see the little French influence coins. This one has an onion kind of top on it. And then here's a round one. So they all are recessed. You can see the sharp gables. This has a little bit of half timber construction, but those would all be considered Elizabethan or English country. Okay, this home is also well known. This
Colonial.
is colonial, yes. So this is what I call a colonial classic. This is mostly what we think of, 2 to 3 stories. It's like the English colonial, only now it's 2 rooms deep. It's bigger. It's still got that formal style, still symmetrical style of the early English colonial ones. Center door, small pane windows, paneled door. So similar, but just a little grander. And there's actually 3 kinds of colonial, and a lot of people confuse these, but these are the 3 kinds of colonials that there are. And it's okay to just call them all colonials, but just for your knowledge, there's Greek Revival, Georgian, and Federal. And each one of these is one of those styles. A common mistake people make is calling them Greek Revival a Georgian. And I think it may be because in Georgia, this style was popular when a lot of the plantations were being built, and people think, oh, that's Georgian. But Georgian is actually named after King George of England. And the Georgian there is there on the left, Greek Revival in the middle, and Federal on the right. And we'll talk about the differences of these. So the Georgian, as I mentioned, is not like a Georgian plantation. It's after King George. It's typically very plain. It's 2 stories and grander than an English colonial, but it still has no shutters. It might have pilasters, which are flat columns. So they look, you can see on the William Hasseltine house, you can see these flat columns here. That's a pilaster. Dental trim is also common. You can see kind of the teeth marks. It's not as obvious on this one. I guess it's not, I don't even see it there. Also front door pediment, which is this thing right here. So that might be added, but it's still not a full porch. And then you can see they borrowed from the French and have a hipped roof on the Georgian. Okay, Federal was originally from England as well. It was known as the Adam style, and it really is just the colonial on steroids, I guess. It's gotten fancier. As the colonists got wealthier and as English middle class rose, they took the colonial style and then they just started adding to it. So making it fancier and just showing their wealth. So that here you'll start to see shutters. You'll also start to see dormers. You'll see fans or arches over the windows. And then you'll have the Palladian window, which means this door with side lights on the side or windows on the either side. That's a Palladian window. You'll also see a protruding front entry instead of being the flat like the Georgian where it's flat on there. It'll be more round or square. It'll come out. And then you might also see what you call a captain's walk here at the top or a balustrade. So in a stairway, the posts are called balusters. And as you have several together, they're called a balustrade. So it's called Adam style. People starting to not like King George. They were also getting wealthier. So they took the Adam style, renamed it Federal as opposed to anything from England or a derivative of King George. And I apologize, I can't see if you have questions, so you have to let me know if you do. Greek Revival is this one. And the reason why it's Greek Revival is because of that front pediment. As you can see, this imitates the temples, the Parthenon, Temple of Athena, and then it will have the front columns. So yes, still a colonial, but a Greek Revival. You can see that in the US. And then here's a better example of the dental trim, where you have these little like spaced out teeth kind of thing. If you've ever been to, or you've seen the Parthenon in its glory, it has statues and stuff along here. In the US, the Greek Revival version is always flat, is plain here, does not have any statuary. But it can have any kind of columns, the Doric or the Corinthian. So it doesn't really matter what that is, but here's some good examples we have around Albertina Kerr Nursery, Ainsworth House. I think it's you can rent out that facility, and then St. John City Hall. So front gable, Greek columns, portico, plain frieze, that's this here. Heavy cornice, so it's kind of a thick area here. Arches, circular rooms, kind of like Monticello and like the Capravilla, and a domed ceiling. Okay, here's our next home style. You probably all know what this is too. No takers. This is a Victorian. Yes. Yes, Victorian. And this was named for Queen Victoria, who was not a Tudor. It was the next royal family. Queen Victoria was known for her excess in food and all kinds of things in decoration. And she did a lot of public works architecture, but it's known to be excessive, usually many levels, a lot of applied decoration, because you can see like trim here, and then you can see like these little fancy things here, protruding spaces. So this window here where it comes out, or like this turret here, also dramatic roof lines. And you can see we've got a gable, we have a hip, and then, you know, a dome here, porches, siding variations. So it's just excess. And then it's almost delightful in how messy it is. So this is McLaughlin House, which is a great example of it here in Portland, but we have several around Portland. This style was very popular when San Francisco was being settled. So a lot of this style is you'll see in the San Francisco townhomes. And then also this window became known as a bay window, presumably because it was the homes in San Francisco were overlooking the bay. Okay, the next home style on this scene was this one. And this is pretty easy. This is modern, and this is what I just call a classic modern, because we've got mid-century modern, and we'll talk about the differences. But a modern home is asymmetrical, it's informal, it's the opposite of a colonial, pretty much. Open floor plan, large panes of glass. You'll have geometric forms like the cylinder, rectangle, squares, and a healthy use of man-made materials like glass, metal, concrete, plastics, and very little decoration. It was just concentration on just the form of itself. And people either hate it or love it. There's the modern. The modern home has its roots in the Industrial Revolution, which is in 1851. And we think of the modern home as more like the early 1900s. But the Industrial Revolution, there was an exhibit there, and the Crystal Palace was designed, and it was steel and metal construction, and nothing had ever been done like that before. It was also modular construction. Unfortunately, was not preserved, but this just inspired architects all over the world, especially in Europe. And then the first architects were to kind of take this idea, and a lot of modern homes you'll see, like you think of a factory when you see of glass and steel, but the first architects to take this to the home were Mies van der Rohe and Le Corbusier. Mies van der Rohe did the Stukenhat house, and this is in Czechoslovakia, in the Czech Republic, I guess. And then on the right, Villa Savoy, that is in France, right? Le Corbusier. Both of these guys immigrated to the United States and began building homes in the US. So that's really where it got its start as far as modern homes being, for the modern homes being for residential. So you can see these look pretty modern still, but these are from 1928 and 1929. And both of these homes still stand. Okay, so then the next home on the scene was this one. And you probably all know this too, since you're from Portland. If you're from Portland. This is a craft. Yes, Craftsman, exactly. So Craftsman uses regional materials, has kind of a square shape typically, or called a four square, where there's four square rooms around, where a colonial is longer. Handcrafted, emphasis on that. Flared columns, so they're skinnier at the top, wider at the bottom. You also might have double columns. Exposed beams, you can see here. Knee braces, which is this corner piece right here. You'll also have a horizontal dormer rather than a tall, skinny. It's kind of long and narrow. You'll often have a stained glass window too. You might have it in the entry or over the stairs, something like that. And these are really common. A lot of when Southeast Portland was being built, this style was popular, and you'll see a lot of these. A lot of people call these a bungalow or a four square. That has more to do with the shape of the house, but the style of the house is a Craftsman. Now, Craftsman got its origin in the arts and crafts era in England. It was a design movement, and a couple of guys, William Morris, he designed a lot of the furniture, which is known as mission furniture, but it was started in England, and then a couple of architects from California, Green and Green, saw this style, brought it to the US, and renamed it Craftsman. So originally it was arts and crafts in England and became Craftsman. A lot of times we think of a Craftsman as small, but the original Craftsman that Green and Green were building were large. So that it doesn't really have to do with the size, it really has to do with the details. Here's a very large Craftsman here on the left, and then here's more of a bungalow style Craftsman there. You can see the knee braces, the columns, the horizontal windows. My theory about the horizontal window is that there was a modern movement going on, and so some of the modern influences kind of spilled over, because that horizontal long line is really more of a modern, typically a modern style, but it kind of carried over into the Craftsman. Now this home style is the next one.
That's Frank Lloyd Wright.
It is Frank Lloyd Wright, and he's best known for his prairie style. Yes. This is kind of transitioning into his North American style, but prairie, we'll just stick with that. His idea is that a house should blend with its environment. It shouldn't stick out. It should be part of it. So organic, blend with the environment, have a long horizontal field to kind of blend with low pitched roofs. He used the hipped roof because it was easy to kind of make it hide and do it low. He also liked wide eaves here. Cantilever he invented, where it hangs farther out than you would think possible because of the invention of steel and concrete. They could start doing a cantilever. Still open plan. Cars were also becoming very common, and so he was the first to kind of put carports in. He had a lot of stylized decorations too, rather than traditional. And then later, he invented what is called Usonian, which is the United States. He thought the style of the United States. And this house, as someone knows, is here in Oregon, Silverton, at the Oregon Gardens, the Gordon House. It was in a different location. It was going to be torn down, and a group got together and moved it there. And you can tour this. It's nice. Here's some of the details. You can see the cantilever here. Here is where you can see stylized. It kind of looks like leaves, but not in a traditional sense. Here's wide cantilever or wide eaves here. And here it's you're supposed to feel kind of like you're in the forest, that maybe there's trees. You're kind of looking through it.
When they moved that, they oriented it exactly the same way as it had been moved from.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, because that's part of his.
With the way the light hits it and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, and then modern prairie, there's an architect here in town too, and this is his home. I can't think of his name, but you'll see a lot of these. This is a kind of a Portland version with the tile roof is not typical, and then here's more of a modern version. This style also keeps having revivals. Well, I guess that's had one back in the 90s, late 90s started that, and that's kind of what you'll see typically. Stone would be common, the low pitched roof, the horizontal lines, that kind of thing. Okay, so 1940s, homes started to be more about size rather than style. Post World War II, the tract home was invented. And it was typically because we needed housing for all the returning soldiers and that kind of thing. So this is one of the first tract homes neighborhoods in Portland, Oregon, in Beaverton. And these are all pretty much the same floor plan. They were this way or they were reversed. But what they did on this is they tried to do like 3 different styles. So here's more of a traditional style. Here's more of a European style. And then here's more of a modern style, all the same house, same floor plan. So tract home is kind of the next thing on the radar. And then, as I mentioned, after that, it kind of got to be more about shape rather than style. So what is this home style?
Ranch.
Ranch, yeah. So started out with California ranches, and as the population moved towards California, people had these long, low houses, and typically they had like a front porch, a big front area, and then kind of enclosed patios. But this is the modernized or the simplified form of the ranch. Great floor plan, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, great for the modern family and a little bit bigger. Originally, they had carports, and a lot of them been filled in with garages, are now built with garages. So 1930s is kind of when this started. But the idea was simple, informal, low to the ground, California style, low pitch. Some influence of Frank Lloyd Wright with that low to the ground and low pitch. Eat-in kitchen was a big deal. So because before the colonials were very formal, your kitchen was separate from your dining room and all of that.
And it's I think it's because people know at least some terms, so they feel like, they can,
Just informal way of living. Yeah. Sliding glass door is also attributed to the ranch style house because, again, just that indoor outdoor feel in the carport. Okay, name this home style.
Contemporary.
Yeah, you could call it contemporary. Technically, it's a mid-century modern. So contemporary is kind of a, and we'll talk about more about that.
That
But
on Fremont? Is
Say
that
that
house
again?
on Fremont? Is that house on Fremont?
this one is actually in California. I tried to get most of them from Portland, but this one is actually in California. The thing that distinguishes the modern, mid-century modern from modern is a pitched roof somewhere. So a true modern is going to have a flat roof. A mid-century modern is going to have one dramatic pitch somewhere in the house. It also has more exposed beams, but like the modern, it will have large windows. It might have angled windows like this, which you don't see in the modern, but the single vault and then the indoor-outdoor living, which it really became popular in California with a developer named Eichler, but we'll talk about that. So this is that's how you can tell a modern, classic modern from a mid-century though, is you'll have one of these pitches like this, a dramatic pitch in the house. Like I mentioned, Joseph Eichler was a developer. He hired an architect called Claude Ogden, and you probably recognize this floor plan because we have a lot of them around Portland, but this one is actually in California. A guy named Robert Rummer, which you're probably familiar with, is popular here in Oregon. He and his wife visited one of the developments in Walnut Creek, California, Eichler's developments, and his wife said, the story goes that his wife said, we need to build those in Portland. And so they copied the ideas and brought them to Portland and built several hundred here in Portland. So here's one in California, and here's the Rummer here. Robert Rummer's still alive. I think he's in his 90s. And you'll see pockets of these around Portland. The idea was to have modern be affordable because modern was very expensive and only the wealthy, and he liked the idea. And actually, Eichler was renting a house designed by Frank Lloyd Wright and loved it. And that's what influenced him to kind of come up with this idea of making affordable modern. And that's where these homes come from. So here's some different versions. Here's the double gable with the atrium in the middle. A lot of these in Oregon, if you drive around, you'll see that they're filled in because it rains a lot here. This is another typical one you'll see of Robert Rummer. Okay. Any thoughts about that?
I love them.
They're really fun. They have a radiant floor heating, so they have pipes through the floor and the concrete, which is expensive to fix. But yeah, it's kind of a lot of really interesting ideas. Okay, so as the modern movement got more popular, we looked to other cultures that were already kind of good at modern and clean, simple lines like Japanese. So if you see a roof like this, I would call it modern, but you can see it has a little bit of a Japanese influence. This roof line too is a Japanese influence. Scandinavia made a lot of influence on design, not so much in the house construction, but more on the interiors. Okay, so now this is the next home style that came on the scene. This one is what I would call a contemporary, a true contemporary. And that is a term that we throw around a lot, kind of meaning modern, but really modern. I mean, contemporary really is where we took the idea of the mid-century modern with the angles and we kind of put it on steroids again. In 1970s is when it became very popular. So you've got an abundance of wood in these because they kind of took the ideas of Frank Lloyd Wright and blended with the environment. They took the angle ideas of mid-century modern and kind of went crazy with it. But you'll find a variety of siding directions on it and maybe even styles. It'll be asymmetrical. You'll have these dramatic roof lines, but the mid-century will only have one, where contemporary will have several. And then also you'll have angled windows. You'll see like these here too. So here are some other, simplified versions of these. This one has not been updated. This one has. In a true contemporary, you would not have had anything white in it because that's not earthy. You even have the fireplace built out of wood. This door is typical of a contemporary as well. This one's obviously been updated with given some white details on it. Okay. Again, about house shape. Can you name this home style?
Tri-level.
Yeah, tri-level or split entry. Yeah, split level we call them. So this, we call it a tri-level or a side split. And this is a split entry. So the idea of getting more space by splitting it off, these central, where you come in on the stairs, they're everywhere. And then you can see the tri-level here. So that became kind of a style, but you can see like here, they put colonial decoration on it. And this one is more of a Western theme here with this brick and the green. So a lot of times people would build a home, but then they would style it either Spanish or colonial or, Tudor, but it would be more about the shape of the house. So you have a split level that looks like a Tudor or looks like a colonial, but it's really more about the size, the shape of it. In the 1980s, we had a big colonial revival. Again, in the 2000s, 1980s, it was looking more like this. This, you should know by now. What would we call this kind of colonial? This would be a Greek revival influence because of the front pediment. And then here, this is more of a Georgian influence because there's no, it's got the flat front thing and then no shutters. So it comes in a variety of ways. So a lot of times when we can't think of a new style, we just have these revivals or people just like them and they get popular again. And then this home style, I would call this transitional. In the 90s, cars became very common and people wanted garages and lots got smaller. And so we started designing around the garage. I think probably the nicest thing you could call it is a transitional, but kind of you could call it a bit of a garage style because that's kind of the primary focus of these homes. To make them interesting, they often have vaulted areas, one room or the entry. But you often find multiple roof types, but no particular style. A lot of people ask me what's the style of my home, and I would probably say eclectic or transitional if it's not particular style. But this was, and we still see a lot of these homes being built. People add in stylistic elements, but they're not any one particular style. This is the next one that became popular. This is also in the modern category, but I'd call it industrial modern. So people started, the loft in New York became very popular where you buy a warehouse and you leave all the ducting exposed and stuff like that. And people started using things that were typically like you would find it in a factory. So industrial lighting, exposed things, glass, metal, that kind of thing. So this is more of an industrial modern. But again, modern because it's minimal exposed elements, but you see less window and more metal in these, more factory kind of type finishes. Stainless steel also became popular then, and that's when it became popular for kitchens. Is people are like, oh, I want my, the kitchen, let's make it look like a cafeteria or an industrial kitchen. And that stainless is held on to today. This home style came next. I'd call this Italianate or Tuscan style, Mediterranean. This was very popular in the late 2000s. Elaborate. We kind of see these seesawing going back and forth where you have people that traditional, a traditional style is very popular, and then we kind of swing to a more modern, and then we tend to swing back and forth. And I think this was a natural outgrowth of industrial modern, where we then, okay, no, we want to make it cozier, warmer, that kind of thing. So you can see some Elizabethan elements, but you kind of got a lot going on. You've got bay windows, arched windows. You've got like a little French influence, Mediterranean, French, Italian, Spanish, kind of these influences together. These you would call carriage doors. It's trying to imitate the old world where you had horses and things like that. So this imitates where you would have kept your horses. But the elaborate, you also have what's called the broken arch right here. So instead of being a round arch like this, it's flattened. So it's called a broken arch. A lot of times you'll see a hipped roof, but you'll have an old world feeling. Red and gold is really popular in interiors as well. So since then, we've had a few revivals, the Prairie in the 2000s as well. Craftsman has been really big. This is a large Craftsman, as you can see. And then now we're kind of going into a contemporary era. For when I'm seeing tract homes, it's kind of, this is where we're going. A lot of people call this mid-century modern, but it's not, because it's got several different roof lines. It's got modern elements, but not strictly mid-century. Another thing a lot of people do is, because a home was maybe built in the mid-century, they call it a mid-century ranch, and it would only be that if it has a vaulted ceiling somewhere, if it has some of those modern elements. Otherwise, it's just a ranch built in the mid-century. But it's been kind of a buzzword, and so I see a lot of people using that. It's a mid-century ranch to draw attention, which, you know, it's fine too. You're in sales. So this home style is pretty popular right now. This is what we would call a modern farmhouse. So it's got modern elements, the black and the white. Here's those industrial lamps that you would see, but then it's got farm elements. It's, you know, brick and a front porch, but then it's got the metal roof. So it's kind of a combination. We can probably thank some HGTV stars for this style being popular. You'll see a steep gable, but it'll be a flat gable. It won't be pitched. Some of the elements. Other types of homes you'll see are narrow homes. So you've got the row house or townhouse, where it's homes stuck together. A brownstone, typically you will enter on the second floor instead of the ground level. And a shotgun is a skinny house, but it's detached. And if you have no particular style, a great way to categorize it is by year, material, style, shape, or size. So for example, material, if it's stucco, this is stone, wood, or brick. General style, really, I think most styles can be categorized into three styles, either a traditional, a country, or a modern. Obviously there's subsets, but that's an easy way to categorize it. I find this with interiors as well, is people either tend to be traditional, more country, or more modern, and then we can get more specific from there. But home styles, you can easily categorize those into those three. And then shape and size. A small house, 1 story, you could call a cottage. A bungalow typically has a dormer on it, and a ranch, you know what that looks like, low and long. So colonial is 2-story, typically like this. Manor is going to be larger, but more organic. And then a mansion, I would call it anything that's bigger like that. So you could do it that way. So this one, I would call it 1994 transitional 2-story. It has some colonial elements, but then it's got some French elements, got the broken arch. So it's really no particular style. So I'd call it a transitional. And then some other ways you could say, like, this is an updated 1940s updated ranch. They've added some, made it kind of look like a farmhouse. This one I would call a modern ranch because of the big windows and the hipped roof. And then this I would call more of a traditional ranch because it has the gabled roof, flat gable there. And then just want to end right there with this beautiful house. If you get a chance to go see the Gordon House in Silverton, I would encourage you to do that. So any questions for me?
Thank you for
No
doing this.
questions, but thank you so much.
You're welcome. I was gonna say the best.
I actually have a question. Hi, so before you go, so, sometime you'll have a style on the outside and then they have remodeled the inside
Yes.
to a different style. So, and I know when people search for specific home, it's like, okay, so where or how do you manage when the interior has been totally redone to a mid-century feel, but yet the outside could be a traditional ranch or something?
Well, I think that's when you probably need to communicate well with your client and find out, are they more concerned about the curb appeal of the house? Or are they more concerned about with how it functions inside, how it looks inside? And be aware of that. And when you're going to show houses, I mean, it's pretty easy now to look up interior pictures and stuff too, and kind of get a good idea if those two things match or if they don't match, and then what your client is looking for.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great class.
Thank you. So the best way I think I can help you guys is I do pre-listing consults. So if you have a client that needs help decluttering or whatever, I can come in. I spend about an hour and a half. I help them figure out what to keep, what to pack, best furniture arrangements, and I send a report, and they can work off of there because staging a lot of times only happens if it's an unoccupied home. So this is a nice bridge between those two. We are also full service. I can do additions, full remodels, kitchens and baths. I can also help your clients if they are looking at a house and wondering if it might work to remodel or to do an addition or something like that. Then I can do a consult for that as well.
Thank you, Lynette. That is a great service to offer too, as we get into a situation here where we're getting more and more, it's getting more and more competitive out there, has been for a while, trying to get the listings and things. Obviously, homes aren't necessarily going right away. So anything that you can do to be of added value to your clients and to offer them something that maybe somebody else isn't offering to help market and sell their home. And this dovetails right into what Lynette does here. So appreciate that. Very interesting class, Lynette, because I had no idea there were so many, not only styles, but kind of sub styles. And then they've got the mutt homes that kind of, include a little bit of everything out there that are very popular. So it was an interesting class. I learned several things today. So somebody did ask, do you travel to Eugene?
I do not. I'm just in Portland.
What's that, Lynette?
No, I don't. I'm just in Portland.
And we do have Lynette's information in the chat there, so everybody can grab that. It's it's in the chat right now, and the fascinating class. Thank you, Lynette. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget, get on More Back Office and play around with it, kind of get familiar with it. Let us know if you have any questions about it or anything. Agent support at morerealty.com. We can help you out with it. We'd love to do that for you and get you familiar. It's a nice one single sign-on where you can get to Sky Slope, you can get to Traxi, you can get to everything you need from that one webpage there. So definitely do that. And if you have any questions about transactions or anything, don't forget, reach out to the Oregon Principal Broker helpline. 503-406-6556 is the number you can either call or text. And of course, you can email orpb@morerealty.com or wapb@morerealty.com in Washington. So everybody, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us and look forward